I served champagne at my son's wedding. He introduced me to his friends as the help. His beautiful bride leaned in and whispered, "That's your mother." The look on his face. I'm Misha, and 23 years ago, I made a choice that would lead to this moment. I cleaned toilets so my son could wear designer suits. I scrubbed floors so he could walk across graduation stages. And on his wedding day, he didn't recognize the hands that had held him through every fever, every nightmare, every triumph. This is the story of how I became invisible to the person I loved most. 23 years ago, I held a positive pregnancy test in the bathroom of a gas station, and my entire world split into before and after. Before, I was Misha Rodriguez, 21 years old, working the register at a grocery store, dating a man who promised me forever in the front seat of his car. After, I was Misha Rodriguez, 21 years old, alone, with a life growing inside me and nothing but my own two hands to build a future with. Marcus, that was his name, disappeared 3 days after I told him. Not gradually, not with explanations or apologies. He simply stopped existing in my life. His phone number changed, his apartment emptied. His friends looked through me like I was made of glass. I learned later he'd moved 2 states away, running from a responsibility that fit in the palm of my hand. I remember standing in my tiny studio apartment, really just a room with a hot plate and a bathroom the size of a closet, pressing my hands against my still flat stomach and making a promise. "You will have more than this," I whispered. "You will have everything I never did." My mother had cleaned houses. Her mother before her had cleaned houses. I'd sworn I would break that cycle. But there I was, at 6 months pregnant, scrubbing someone else's toilet because it paid $3 more an hour than the grocery store. Pride is expensive. My baby needed diapers more than I needed dignity. Daniel arrived on a Tuesday morning in March, screaming his arrival into the world like he had important things to say and wouldn't wait a moment longer. When the nurse placed him in my arms, 7 pounds, 3 ounces of perfect humanity, I understood for the first time what people meant when they said unconditional love. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I felt it. The click. The lock. This person was mine to protect, and I would move mountains with my bare hands if I had to. Those first years were a blur of exhaustion and wonder. I worked 3 jobs: cleaning office buildings before dawn, the grocery store during the day, and waitressing on weekends. Daniel came with me everywhere. I'd strap him to my chest while I mopped floors, and he'd sleep to the rhythm of my work. The night shift managers knew us. "There's Misha and her little shadow," they'd say. I couldn't afford daycare, couldn't afford anything, really, but I made it work. I became an expert at stretching a dollar until it screamed. Thrift stores became my boutiques. Day-old bread from the bakery became our staple. Other people's hand-me-down clothes became Daniel's wardrobe. But books. I always found money for books. I'd find them at yard sales, 25 cents each, and I'd read to him every night. "Mama, again!" he'd demand, his 3-year-old voice insistent, his brown eyes, Marcus's eyes, though I tried not to think about that, wide with wonder. And I'd read it again and again, because those moments, curled up in our secondhand armchair with my son in my lap, were the moments when I wasn't a maid or a cashier or a waitress. I was just Mama, and that was enough. Daniel was special. I know every mother says that, but with him it was true in ways that startled me. By 4, he was reading on his own. By 5, he was doing math problems that confused me. His kindergarten teacher pulled me aside one day, concern written across her face. "Miss Rodriguez." "Miss," I corrected gently. "Miss Rodriguez, has Daniel been tested for the gifted program?" I almost laughed. Gifted program? I was worried about affording his school supplies. But she persisted, and Daniel tested, and suddenly my brilliant, beautiful boy was in a different world, Advanced classes, special programs, field trips to museums and science centers. And I worked harder, picked up extra shifts, said yes when my body screamed no because I would not be the reason he missed an opportunity. "Mama, why do you work so much?" he asked me once. He was 7, getting ready for bed, and I'd just gotten home from my second job. It was 9:30, past his bedtime, but he'd waited up. I knelt beside his bed, smoothing his dark hair back from his forehead. "Because you're going to do amazing things, Miho. You're going to college. You're going to have choices I never had, and that takes money." "But I want you here." My heart cracked, but I kept smiling. "I'm always here, baby. Even when I'm not here, I'm here." I pressed my hand to his chest. Right here. He didn't understand then. Maybe he never would. The years moved fast. Daniel in middle school, winning the science fair 3 years in a row. Daniel with his certificates and awards, and me in the audience, still in my cleaning uniform because I came straight from work. Daniel getting straight A's, and me crying over the report card in the car before I went to my night shift, because I was so damn proud and so damn tired. I kept every certificate, every award, every report card. I taped them to the walls of our apartment. We'd upgraded to a 1-bedroom. Daniel got the bedroom. I slept on a futon in the living room. Until the walls were papered with his achievements. My own gallery of proof that sacrifice meant something. "You're going to be somebody," I told him on his 13th birthday. We couldn't afford a party, but I'd scraped together enough for his favorite cake from the bakery and a used calculator he needed for advanced math. "I'm already somebody, Mama," he said, and for a moment I saw the little boy who used to fall asleep on my chest while I mopped floors. But something was changing. I felt it like a shift in the wind. He was growing, and growing up, and growing away. And I told myself it was natural. It was good. It meant I was doing my job right. I told myself that success meant he wouldn't need me forever. I told myself a lot of things in those days. I should have known that the distance between us would grow wider than I could measure. I should have known that the better his life became, the smaller mine would look in comparison. I should have known that shame is a weed that grows in the space between where you come from and where you're trying to go. But I didn't know. Not yet. All I knew was that my son was brilliant and I would give him everything, even if it meant giving up pieces of myself until there was nothing left but the work-worn hands that built his dreams. Those hands. He used to kiss them goodnight when he was small. Mama's magic hands, he called them. I wonder if he remembered that years later, when those same hands served him champagne at his wedding and he called me the help. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, there was high school. There was the scholarship. There was the moment everything changed. There was the moment I started becoming invisible to my own son. The letter arrived on a Wednesday in March, exactly 14 years after Daniel was born. Prestigious Westridge Preparatory Academy, full academic scholarship, one of only 15 students selected from across the state. I screamed, actually screamed, right there in our apartment hallway, holding that letter like it was made of gold. Daniel came running from his room, alarmed, and I grabbed him, spinning him around until we were both dizzy and laughing. "You did it, Miho, you did it." He was grinning, genuinely grinning, and for a moment we were just us again, Misha and Daniel against the world, winning. I should have paid more attention to the look that crossed his face when he read the rest of the letter, the list of required items, the dress code, the parent orientation schedule. "Mama," he said carefully, "maybe you don't need to come to the orientation." "What? Of course I'm coming. I want to see your new school." It's during the day. You'd have to take off work." "I'll make it work, baby. I always do." He didn't argue, but he didn't smile either. Westridge Preparatory sat on a hill like a castle, all brick and ivy and wrought iron gates. I took the bus because my car had died the month before, and I couldn't afford repairs. I wore my best outfit, a dress I had found at Goodwill, pressed until the creases were sharp enough to cut. But the moment I walked through those gates, I knew. I didn't belong here. The other parents arrived in cars that cost more than I'd earn in 5 years. They wore clothes with labels I couldn't pronounce. They spoke with that particular confidence of people who'd never worried about making rent or stretching hamburger meat across 3 meals. Daniel found me in the crowd, and I saw it. The flicker in his eyes. Quick, gone in a second, but I saw it. Embarrassment. My own son was embarrassed of me. "Mama, you made it," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Of course, mijo. I wouldn't miss—" "Daniel Rodriguez?" A woman with a clipboard approached, her smile professional and distant. "We need you for the student orientation. Parents are gathering in the auditorium." "Great, let's go, baby." I moved to follow him. "Actually, Mrs. Rodriguez, the student orientation is separate. Your son will join you afterward." I watched him walk away with the other students, watched him laugh at something another boy said, watched him not look back. In the auditorium, I sat alone. The other parents clustered in groups, talking about summer homes and college prep strategies and their children's impressive credentials. I smoothed my Goodwill dress and tried to look like I belonged. After the orientation, Daniel was quiet on the bus ride home. "So, are you excited?" I asked. "Yeah, it's great." "Make any friends?" "Some guys seem cool." 3-word answers. When had my son, who used to talk my ear off about everything, become this stranger of few words? "Daniel, is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Mama. I'm just tired." But it wasn't fine. Over the following months, I watched my son transform. He traded his thrift store jeans for khakis and polo shirts that I somehow scraped together money to buy. He studied harder, stayed later at school, joined clubs and activities. He was thriving, and I was becoming a problem he needed to manage. "Mama, about the parent-teacher conferences, I already requested the time off. I'll be there. Maybe you could come a little later, like after the scheduled time. The teachers do walk-ins at the end." My hands stilled over the dishes I was washing. "You don't want me there during the regular time?" "It's not that. It's just easier with your schedule, right? Less pressure." Lies dressed up as consideration. We both knew it. But I went late anyway. For him. Because loving your child sometimes means letting them be ashamed of you, even when it carves pieces out of your heart. Junior year, he brought home a permission slip for the winter formal. "Are you going?" I asked, excited. "Maybe. Haven't decided." "You should go. We can get you a suit from—" "A guy at school. His dad owns a formal wear shop. He can get me something." "Maybe I can—" "It's fine, Mama. It's handled." Everything was handled now. Handled by other people. People who weren't me. The night of the formal, I wanted to take pictures. Every mother's right, isn't it? To embarrass their child with photos before a dance. "Mama, I'm meeting everyone at school. We're taking pictures there." "Just one picture. Here, please." The look he gave me, like I was asking him to cut off his arm. "Fine. One picture." I took 3. He smiled, and none of them. After he left, I sat on our worn futon and cried into the same dish rag I'd been using for 6 months, crying because I'd given this boy everything, and somehow everything I wasn't enough. Senior year brought college applications and a future I could barely imagine. Daniel's guidance counselor called me in for a meeting. Ivy League schools were interested. With his grades, his test scores, his story, single mother, financial hardship, academic excellence despite obstacles, he was exactly what they were looking for. His story. Like our life was a compelling narrative for an admissions essay instead of reality I lived every day. But if it got him in, I didn't care. He got into Princeton with a full ride. Princeton. I couldn't even spell it correctly the first time I tried to write it down. The acceptance letter sat on our kitchen counter for 3 days, and I must have read it 100 times. My son, Princeton. It was everything I'd dreamed of, worked for, sacrificed for. So why did it feel like I was losing him? "We need to talk about logistics," Daniel said one evening. He was 18 now, almost a man, and he spoke with that careful tone he used when he was about to say something he knew I wouldn't like. "Okay, the school is in New Jersey. That's pretty far. I know, I looked it up. Maybe I could visit once a semester? I could save up. Mama, you don't need to do that. I'll be home for summer breaks and winter holidays." "But what about Parents' Weekend? Don't they have those?" "They do, but it's expensive. Hotels, travel, time off work you can't afford. I'll figure it out. I always do." He didn't argue, but he didn't smile either. I looked at him then, really looked at him, and I saw something in his eyes I couldn't name. Guilt? Gratitude? Grief? "But maybe it's time for you to stop sacrificing everything for me. Maybe it's time for you to have a life too." Noble words, pretty words. Words that meant, I don't want you there. At Princeton, the distance became a canyon. He called less, texted in short bursts. His Facebook, which I'd finally learned to use so I could see his life, filled with photos of new friends, new places, new experiences, fraternity parties and study groups and internships with companies I'd never heard of. I saw him grow into their world, saw his clothes get nicer, his vocabulary get richer, his accent smooth out the rough edges he'd gotten from our neighborhood. Saw him become someone I barely recognized. "How's school, mijo?" I asked during our increasingly rare phone calls. "Good. Busy." "What are you studying?" "Economics and finance. Good career prospects." "Career prospects?" My son, who used to tell me elaborate stories about becoming an astronaut superhero president, now spoke in bullet points about career prospects. "Are you happy?" A pause. Always a pause before he answered that question. "Yeah, Mama, I'm good." Good. Not happy. Good. By his senior year at Princeton, I was mostly an obligation, a box to check. The phone call home every few weeks, shorter each time, the quick visit during holidays where he seemed restless, eager to leave, like our small apartment was too small for the person he'd become. And maybe it was. Maybe I was too. When he got his job offer, some big investment firm in Manhattan, starting salary higher than I'd make in 5 years, I cried. Pride mixed with something else. Something that tasted like goodbye. "That's wonderful, baby." "Thanks, it's a great opportunity." "I'm so proud of you." "I know, Mama." "You made all this possible." Past tense. Like his gratitude was something finished, filed away, a debt acknowledged but no longer owed. 3 years after that, he got engaged to Victoria Ashford. He told me over the phone. "That's amazing. When do I get to meet her?" "Soon, Mama, soon. Things are just crazy with the wedding planning." "Soon." Never came. The invitation arrived in the mail 6 weeks before the date. Formal, expensive cardstock with embossed lettering. My name was listed, but there was no +1, no special note, just my name among what I assumed were hundreds of others. I called him. Daniel, the invitation is beautiful." "Thanks." Victoria's mom handled most of it. "I'm so excited to finally meet her." "Yeah, it'll be good." "Do you need any help with anything? Planning or—" "No, Mama, it's all covered. Just come and enjoy, okay?" Covered. Handled. Managed. Without me. I bought a dress I couldn't afford because I wanted to look nice, wanted him to be proud, just once to have me as his mother in front of his new family. 2 weeks before the wedding, my friend Rosa called. Misha, I got us both hired for catering work. Big fancy wedding at the Grandview Estate. Pays double our usual rate. When? She told me the date. My blood went cold. Rosa, who's getting married? Some rich couple. Daniel Rodriguez and Victoria Ashford. Big society thing, apparently. My son's wedding. And I was hired as the help. I didn't sleep the night before the wedding. I sat on my futon, the same one I'd been sleeping on for 15 years, holding that formal invitation in one hand and my catering uniform in the other. 2 versions of the same day. 2 versions of myself. Guest or help. Mother or stranger. Rosa called at 5:30 in the morning. Misha, you ready? We need to be there by 6 for setup. I could have said no, could have called in sick, could have shown up as his mother, in my expensive dress, and forced him to acknowledge me. But something in me, some terrible, masochistic lead to understand, made me say yes. I needed to see who my son had become when he thought I wasn't watching. The Grandview Estate was the kind of place I'd only seen in magazines, rolling lawns that took a team of gardeners to maintain, a mansion with actual columns, a garden where the ceremony would take place, with more flowers than I'd seen in my entire life. Jesus, Rosa whispered as we pulled up in her beat-up Honda. These people have money. We entered through the service entrance. Of course. The catering manager, a severe woman named Mrs. Chen, lined us up like soldiers. This is a high-profile event. Senator Ashford's daughter. You will be invisible. You will be silent. You will be perfect. Understood? Yes, ma'am, we chorused. Invisible. The story of my life. They put me on champagne service for the cocktail hour. Rosa squeezed my hand before we separated to our stations. You okay? I'm fine, I lied. The guests began arriving at 4. I watched from my position near the terrace, tray balanced perfectly on my palm. Years of waitressing had taught me that much. They came in designer dresses and tailored suits, laughing that easy laugh of people who'd never worried about anything real. And then I saw him. Daniel, my son. He stood near the fountain in a tuxedo that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. His hair was perfectly styled, his shoes gleamed. He looked like a stranger, like someone from a movie screen. He looked happy. My heart should have soared. Isn't that what I'd worked for? His happiness? But all I felt was the weight of absence. I wasn't beside him. I wasn't fussing with his boutonniere or wiping away proud tears. I was 40 feet away with a tray of champagne, watching my son's joy from behind a serving station. Victoria appeared and my breath caught. She was stunning. Tall, blonde, elegant in a way I'd never been even on my best day. Her dress probably cost more than I'd made in the last year. She held Daniel's hand and he looked at her the way he used to look at me when he was small, like she was his whole world. I was happy for him. I was also erased. Champagne? I offered to a group of guests near the terrace, my voice steady, my face professionally blank. They took glasses without looking at me, without seeing me. I'd gotten good at being invisible. The ceremony was brief and beautiful. I watched from the service corridor, technically not allowed to be in the ceremony space, but unable to stop myself. Daniel's vows were eloquent, polished. He spoke about finding his home in Victoria, about building a future together, about gratitude for the opportunities he'd been given. He thanked his fraternity brothers, his professors, his mentors at the firm. He didn't mention me. Not once. During the cocktail hour, I moved through the crowd with my tray, a ghost in a uniform. I heard fragments of conversation, vacation homes in the Hamptons, private school decisions for children not yet born, stock portfolios, and inheritances. This was Daniel's world now. A world I'd never fit into, no matter how many floors I scrubbed. And then it happened. Daniel stood with a group of men near the Marble Bar, friends from Princeton, I guessed, from their easy confidence and expensive watches. They were laughing about something, drinks in hand, masters of the universe at 26 years old. I approached with my tray of champagne, my eyes carefully lowered. "Gentlemen, champagne?" They took glasses, still talking, not seeing me. Not until Daniel's friend, Benson or Preston or one of those names, said, "Rodriguez, this is incredible. Your in-laws really know how to throw a party." "They do," Daniel agreed, smiling. "Nothing but the best for their princess." "Speaking of which, how does it feel, marrying into the Ashford family?" "Surreal. Good surreal." Daniel grabbed another champagne flute from my tray. Our fingers didn't touch. "You've come a long way, man. From scholarship kid to this? That's the American dream right there." Something flickered across Daniel's face. Quick. Uncomfortable. "Yeah, well, hard work pays off. And having the right connections doesn't hurt." Benson or Preston laughed. "Though I gotta say, nobody works a room like you. You fit right in." "I learned from the best," Daniel said smoothly. The best. His Princeton friends, his corporate mentors, his new family. Never me. I should have walked away, should have refilled my tray and moved to another section, but I stood there, frozen, tray in hand, waiting for something. Acknowledgement? Recognition? A miracle? Then Benson or Preston noticed me. Really noticed me. "Hey, sweetheart, think you could grab us another bottle? This one's almost empty." "Of course, sir." My voice was steady, professional, empty. I turned to go, and that's when I heard it. "Yo, Rodriguez, does the help always just hover like that?" One of them laughed. "She's been standing there for like 2 minutes." My feet stopped moving. "Yeah," Daniel said, and I heard the smile in his voice. "The help here is top-notch, very attentive." The help. He called me the help. I turned slowly, my eyes finally rising to meet my son's face. He was looking at me now. Actually looking. But there was no recognition. Just mild annoyance at a servant who'd lingered too long. 23 years, 3 jobs, 1,000 sacrifices, hands worn raw from cleaning chemicals and work, nights spent crying into dish towels because I couldn't afford to miss work to attend his events. Every dollar, every hour, every piece of myself given freely and without reservation. And I was the help. The tray trembled in my hands, just slightly. But I kept my face neutral, professional. "Right away, sir," I said quietly. I saw Victoria before Daniel did. She'd approached from the garden side, beautiful and radiant, and she'd heard everything. Her eyes found mine, and in that moment, something passed between us. Woman to woman. Human to human. She looked at me. Really looked at me. And I saw her mind working. Saw her eyes move from my face to the old photograph she must have seen, the one Daniel kept in his wallet when they first started dating, before it disappeared. Saw recognition dawn like a sunrise. "Daniel?" she said softly, her hand on his arm. Her voice was gentle, but there was steel underneath. "Do you know who that is?" "Who? The server? No, why would I?" "That's your mother." The world stopped. I watched my son's face as those 3 words landed, watched confusion become disbelief, become recognition, become horror, watched 23 years of distance collapse into a single moment of terrible, perfect clarity. His champagne glass slipped from his fingers. Time fractured into slow motion, the glass falling, shattering on marble, champagne spreading like a stain. His friends going quiet, other guests turning to look. The music still playing somewhere in the distance, oblivious. And Daniel's face. Oh, his face. Every emotion I'd wanted to see for years flooded across it at once. Shock, denial, shame, devastation. The mask of the polished investment banker cracked wide open, and underneath was the little boy who used to fall asleep on my chest. "Mama?" he whispered. The word broke something in me. I stood there in my server's uniform, tray still balanced perfectly in my hand, muscle memory from 1,000 shifts, and looked at my son. My brilliant, successful, ashamed son. "Hello, Daniel," I said softly. The terrace had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching us now. Watching this moment of truth play out in real time. Watching the groom realize he'd just called his own mother the help at his wedding. Watching his carefully constructed world of success and belonging shatter like that champagne glass on the marble floor. Victoria's hand was still on his arm, her eyes moving between us. And in her face, I saw something I hadn't expected. Understanding. "Daniel, I think you need to talk to your mother." Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Just tears. And in that moment, surrounded by his wealthy friends and his new family and the ruins of his perfect wedding day, Daniel Rodriguez, Princeton graduate, successful investment banker, husband-to-be, finally saw me. Not as the help, not as an embarrassment to be managed, but as the woman who'd given him everything, including the chance to forget where he came from. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Daniel stood there, frozen, his face cycling through emotions faster than I could track them. His friends shifted uncomfortably, suddenly very interested in their shoes. Guests, who'd been laughing moments ago, now watched with the horrified fascination of people witnessing a car crash. And I just stood there with my tray of champagne, watching my son drown in his own shame. "Mama," he said again, his voice cracking on the word. I didn't know you were working your wedding," I finished quietly. "No, I suppose you wouldn't." His face crumpled. "Oh, God." Victoria stepped closer to him, but her eyes stayed on me. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm Victoria. I've wanted to meet you for so long." The kindness in her voice almost undid me. Almost. "It's nice to meet you too, dear. You look beautiful." "Thank you." She glanced at Daniel, who still hadn't moved. "Daniel talks about you." I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped. "Does he?" "He does. He showed me pictures when we first started dating. You have the same eyes." She paused. "That's how I recognized you." Daniel flinched like she'd slapped him. "The same eyes," I repeated softly. "Yes, we used to have more than that in common." "Mama, please," Daniel's voice was barely audible. Can we talk privately?" "I'm working." "Daniel, I can't just leave my station." "Screw the station." His voice rose, drawing more stares. "You're my mother. You shouldn't be working at my wedding at all. You should be—" "What?" I interrupted, and for the first time I let my anger show. Let him see what years of invisibility had done. "What should I be, Daniel? A guest? When was I going to get my invitation? Oh, wait, I got one. A formal card in the mail with no note, no phone call, just my name on expensive cardstock like I was another business associate to check off the list. That's not, and when I called to ask if you needed help planning, you said everything was covered, handled, managed by everyone except me. His friends were backing away now, sensing this was too personal, too raw for strangers to witness. But Victoria stayed, and so did Senator Ashford, who'd appeared from somewhere. His face grave. "Son," Daniel whispered. "I didn't mean the help?" The words tasted like poison. "You called me the help. Do you know what these hands did for you?" I held them up, and they were shaking now. "These hands scrubbed toilets so you could go to Westridge. These hands worked 3 jobs so you could have books and calculators and a chance. These hands held you through every fever, every nightmare, every time the world was too big and scary." Tears were streaming down his face now. "I know." "Do you?" "Because from where I'm standing, you forgot. You forgot where you came from. You forgot who raised you. You forgot that before you were Daniel Rodriguez, Princeton graduate, before you were Daniel Rodriguez, investment banker, you were Daniel Rodriguez, my son. And I loved you when you had nothing to offer me but your existence. Mama, I never forgot you were embarrassed of me." The words ripped out of me, years of swallowed pain finally erupting. "Since Westridge, since you saw how the other half lived, you've been ashamed. Don't deny it. I saw it in your eyes at that first orientation. I felt it every time you asked me to come late to conferences, every time you handled things without me, every time you grew more distant." "I wasn't ashamed of you," he choked out. "I was ashamed of myself." That stalked me. "What?" Daniel's hands covered his face. His shoulders shook. When he spoke, his voice was muffled, broken. "I was ashamed that I wanted this life so badly. Ashamed that I liked the fancy schools and the nice clothes and the world where nobody looked at me like I was less than. Ashamed that every time I came home and saw our apartment and saw you working yourself to death, all I could think was, I can't go back to this." Victoria's hand was on his back now, steadying him. "I was ashamed," Daniel continued, his voice raw, "that I was protecting you from this world, that you wouldn't fit in, that it was kinder to keep you separate. But the truth is, I was protecting myself from the guilt, from the reminder of who I used to be." Senator Ashford cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should give you privacy." "No." I surprised myself with the firmness in my voice. "Let them hear. Let everyone hear." I looked around at the crowd of wealthy guests, at their designer clothes and their comfortable lives, and I spoke. "I don't regret a single sacrifice I made for my son. Not one. Not one shift, not one floor scrubbed, not one moment of exhaustion or worry, because that's what love is. That's what mothers do. We give everything and ask for nothing but to be remembered, to be loved back, to matter." I turned back to Daniel. "But you can't love someone and be ashamed of them at the same time. You can't accept everything a person gives you and then pretend they don't exist when it's inconvenient. That's not love, mijo. That's use." "I know." His voice was barely a whisper. "I know, and I don't know how to make it right." "You can't," I said simply. "You can't give me back the years of being invisible. Can't undo the help. Can't erase the fact that on the most important day of your life, you didn't have a place for me at your table." Victoria spoke then, her voice gentle but clear. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I didn't know. He told me you were too busy with work to come to the engagement party, that you were traveling when I wanted to meet you for lunch, that you preferred to keep your distance because you were shy around new people." She looked at Daniel, disappointment clear in her eyes. "He lied to me, to his own fiancée, about his own mother." Daniel's face went ashen. "Victoria!" "I asked him to show me pictures, to tell me stories. I wanted to know the woman who raised this amazing man I was falling in love with." Her voice hardened. "But the man I thought I knew wouldn't have let his mother work as catering staff at his own wedding." "I didn't know she'd be here." Daniel's voice cracked with desperation. But you knew she existed somewhere, struggling, working, loving you from a distance you created? That might be even worse. The wedding, the celebration, the perfect day, it all felt very far away now. What remained was just truth. Raw and ugly and necessary. Daniel looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. What do I do, Mama? How do I fix this? I adjusted my tray, muscle memory, and met my son's gaze. I don't know if you can, Daniel. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't even know if I want to. Please, but I do know this. I took a breath. I'm done being invisible. I'm done being convenient. I'm done being the secret you keep to maintain your perfect life. I set down my tray on the nearest table. Mrs. Chen can fire me if she wants. I'm not serving champagne. At my son's wedding. I'm either a guest or I'm gone. I looked at Victoria. I'm sorry your wedding day is ruined. Don't be, she said quietly. Better to know who I'm marrying now than later. Daniel's face went even paler. I turned to walk away, toward the service entrance, toward my par, toward whatever came next. Mama, wait! I stopped but didn't turn around. Please don't go. Give me one reason to stay. The silence that followed was the longest of my life.
The silence stretched for 5 seconds, 10, 15. I could hear my own heartbeat, hear the whisper of wind through the expensive gardens, hear 200 guests holding their breath. Then Daniel spoke, and his voice was different, stripped bare, honest. Because I need you. I turned slowly. He stood there, tuxedo rumpled, face blotchy with tears, all his polish gone, just a broken man who looked exactly like the little boy who used to cry when I left for night shifts. Daniel, Victoria started, but he shook his head. No, I need to say this. He took a shaky breath, looking at me. I spent 6 years building a life where I didn't need anyone, where I was self-made, self-sufficient, completely independent. I was so proud of that, so proud that I'd escaped poverty, that I'd climbed the ladder, that I'd made something of myself. He laughed bitterly. But the truth is, I've been miserable. I have money and success and a beautiful fiancé who's probably rethinking this whole thing. Victoria's face softened slightly. But I don't have the one person who actually knows me, the real me. The me who used to be scared of thunderstorms and loved chocolate chip pancakes and believed he could be anything because you told him he could. A tear rolled down my cheek. Just one. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I hurt you in ways I can't take back. I know that calling you the help. His voice broke. Jesus, Mama, I called you the help. I don't know how to live with that. I don't know how to be the person who could do that to you. Then don't be, I said quietly. He looked at me, confused. Don't be that person anymore, I said. Be someone different. Be better. I don't know if I can. You can because I raised you to be better than this. I took a step toward him. You made mistakes, Daniel. Terrible mistakes. You let shame poison you. You let ambition blind you. You forgot that the measure of a man isn't where he ends up. It's who he brings with him on the journey. Senator Ashford stepped forward then, his face thoughtful. Mrs. Rodriguez, may I say something? I nodded, weary. My father was a coal miner. Died of black lung when I was 15. He looked at his daughter, Victoria, who seemed surprised. I never talk about it. Built my whole career on an image of generational wealth and old money. Even Victoria didn't know until today. Victoria's eyes widened. Dad. I was ashamed, he said simply.
ashamed of the dirt under my father's fingernails, ashamed that we lived in a trailer, ashamed that I got where I am by pretending I came from somewhere else. He looked at Daniel. But watching this young man face his shame publicly, watching him break down in front of everyone he's tried to impress, that takes more courage than I ever had. He turned to me. Your son is a fool, but he's a fool who's learning, and that's more than most of us ever do. I didn't know what to say to that. Victoria spoke then, her voice steady. Mrs. Rodriguez, I grew up with everything. Money, opportunities, connections. But my parents were always working, always busy. I barely knew them. She looked at Daniel. When Daniel talked about his childhood, the few times he actually did, I heard something I never had. Someone who fought for him. Someone who showed up even when it was hard. I envied that. She walked over to me, elegant even in this moment of chaos. I don't know if Daniel and I will get married today. We have a lot to talk about. But I know this. If we do have children someday, I want them to have a grandmother who teaches them what real love looks like. Not the convenient kind, the hard kind. The kind that shows up even when it costs you everything. Something in my chest loosened. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. Saw the little boy and the man and everything in between. Saw his mistakes and his potential. Saw that he was imperfect and human and mine. I can't go back to being invisible. I won't. I don't want you to, he said. I want to introduce you to everyone right now. As my mother, as the person who made all this possible, I want to stand up there at the reception, if we still have one, and tell everyone the truth about where I came from and who got me here. That's not why I came forward, Daniel. I don't need grand gestures. I know, but I do. I need everyone to know. I need to stop hiding. I stood there, tray abandoned, uniform wrinkled, and faced the biggest choice of my life. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's not about pretending something didn't hurt. It's about deciding that love is bigger than pain, that growth is possible, that people can change. It's also about knowing your worth and demanding to be treated accordingly. I'll stay, I said finally, but things change. All things. You don't get to hide me anymore. You don't get to manage me or handle me or keep me at arm's length. You don't get to have a relationship with me only when it's convenient. Okay, he whispered. And you're going to therapy. Both of you. I looked at Victoria. If you still marry him. Victoria almost smiled. Deal. And I meet your friends, your colleagues. Everyone in your life gets to know exactly who your mother is. Yes, anything. I walked up to my son and placed my hand on his cheek, the way I used to when he was small. Then we start over, right now, fresh. Daniel collapsed into my arms, sobbing like a child, and I held him the way I'd held him 1,000 times before. My baby, my brilliant, flawed, learning to be better baby. I'm so sorry, Mama. I know, mijo, I know. They did get married that day. But first, Daniel gave a speech. No notes, no polish, just truth. He told 200 guests about his mother, who worked 3 jobs, about his shame and his mistakes, about learning that pride costs more than poverty ever did. I sat at the head table, not in the shadows, not in a uniform, as his mother. It's been 2 years since that day. Daniel calls me twice a week, every week. He and Victoria visit monthly. They're expecting a baby, a girl. They've asked me to help pick her name. They're naming her Grace. Because grace, Daniel told me, is getting something you don't deserve. And maybe we all need a little more of that. I still work. I clean houses because it's what I know, and there's dignity in it. But now I work because I choose to, not because I have to. Daniel made sure of that. But more than the money, more than the security, what matters is this. I'm not invisible anymore. I'm Misha Rodriguez. I'm Daniel's mother. And I raised a man who learned, finally, that success means nothing if you lose yourself and the people who loved you first along the way. That's my story. The story of how my son called me the help at his wedding, and how that terrible moment became the beginning of something true. Sometimes you have to break completely before you can heal properly. Sometimes the worst moment is the doorway to your best version of yourself. And sometimes love means letting people see you break and choosing to help them stand back up anyway. That's what mothers do. That's what I did. That's what grace looks like.